Hello everyone, my name is Lucia Bautista Martinez, and today I'm going to present my final project from this specialization in Enseñanza y Aprendizaje del Inglés como Lengua Extranjera at Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. My final project is about daily customs around the world. Okay, this is my project, daily customs around the world. Okay, I'm going to explain to you the context of my students. It is a group made of 8 women between 20 to 40 years old. All of them are professionals, mothers, and housewives, and this is the principal reason that why they are taking online classes, because they had many things to do during the day, so that's why they have only the opportunity to take online classes through Zoom platform only twice a week, from Mondays and Wednesdays, from 8:30 to 9:30. All of them have technological devices, so that's why an internet connection, so that's why they can take the online classes without any inconvenience. Their profile now, they are currently, this class is B1 level according to the Common European Framework. So that's why they can read and understand the ideas in a test. They can have a clear and well-organized ideas when writing. However, the grammatical structure and vocabulary is still fading a little. And they are able to answer questions, present role plays with the help of a conversation model. So I based this lesson plan using these theoretical concepts. So I use the vital dimensions in intercultural communicative competence. So the goal of intercultural learning is to transform our awareness, attitudes, and knowledge into competence, and to develop flexibility and adaptability in intercultural communication. So that's why it has 3 important points. So here we have knowledge, attitudes, and skills. Since to prepare students to be confident communicators in a different real-life context, through activities in which critical thinking is also promoted, identifying and comparing daily customs in our country and others. So I use, to plan and prepare these activities, I use a methodology. I use communicative language teaching method. So, and it has many characteristics. So the first one is student-centered learning. So the communicative approach encourages active participation from students, making them the central focus of the learning process. The role of the teacher is that to be a facilitator or a guide who provides opportunities for students to practice and apply their language skills. Then we have meaningful context. So it means that language learning is situated with meaningful context that reflect real-life situations. Students engage in authentic tasks, communicative activities, such as role plays, discussions, debates, problem-solving exercises, which require them to use the target language to convey their thoughts and ideas effectively. Then we had fluency over accuracy. And the primary goal of the communicative approach is to develop students' fluency in using the English language. While accuracy is important, students are encouraged to communicate their ideas even if they make mistakes, to focus on encouraging students to express themselves confidently and effectively. Another point is integration of skills. The communicative approach integrates the 4 skills. It means listening, speaking, reading, and writing in a balanced way. Students engage in activities that involve all of these skills, allowing them to develop their overall communicative competence. Then we had an important point, that is the use of authentic materials. So authentic materials such as newspapers, magazines, videos, and audio recordings are to expose students to real-world language and context. These materials provide opportunities for students to develop their comprehension skills, expand their vocabulary, and gain exposure to different registers and accents. Then we have a pair work and a group work. Collaborative activities such as pair work and group work are an integral part of communicative approach. Students work together to complete tasks, solve problems, and engage in discussions which promote interaction and negotiating of meaning. Then we have the error correction. Error correction is handled in a way that maintains the flow of communication and does not hinder students willing to participate. Errors are noted and addressed at appropriate times, such as during feedback sessions or after completion of a communicative activity. And we have real-life language use. The communicative approach aims to prepare students for real-life language use, focusing on the functional language and everyday communication that includes teaching functions like making requests, giving opinions, etc., and teaching language that is relevant to students and or students' needs and interests. Then we have the communicative competence by their hands, since it says that in his theory, he maintains that competence in a language includes not only to know or learn grammar, words, or sounds, but it's also the social knowledge, when and how we can use the language appropriately. So here we have the description of my lesson. I didn't plan these lesson plans with one lesson for reading and the other one for writing and the other one for listening. So I try to integrate all the skills in these lessons. So I integrate listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And there's some skills that, for example, listening for specific information, listening for detail, or reading for detail, or listening or reading for gist. Then here we have, I start this kind of activities by activating students' prior knowledge. So I encourage students to give their ideas. I set up the situation and set up the situation in real life use. So on the first one, we discuss about customs around the world. So it means that we first discuss about greetings. So different ways to greeting around the world. So students looked at the pictures and I asked to them where and how we can greet like this. For example, on the first picture, the people bow each other. So and the students can say that it can be in China or in Japan or something like that, but here in Mexico, no. So and some people kiss on the second picture, and they can say that maybe in Spain or here in Mexico, but maybe these kind of greetings can be inappropriate maybe in Japan, and how these kind of differences can be something that it can be normal here in Mexico or in another country can be rude in others. So that's why it's important to know the context. So we discuss about what kind of behaviors we can have when we are changing business cards. So, and when we get acquainted with someone. So students, I elicit the students' ideas in order to set up the situation. And then I play a photo story where they have two different speakers. One speaker was Mexican speaker and the other was from Japan, and they can listen while they were reading this kind of conversation. So they can listen well, maybe they are using English, that is lingua franca in this case, but they can listen and notice the different pronunciations and the different accents when they are doing. In this activity, they deduce meaning from the context because they focusing on language, and they solve an activity like this. And finally, on this activity, they think and wrote some advices from a foreign person when they imagine that a foreign person wants to visit Mexico, and they have to give an advice to them when they are visiting to our country. And then I present vocabulary. In this case, the vocabulary was about the activities that we can do when we travel to another country. What kind of things we can do there, or when we travel to another place. So then, in this case, we learn about present perfect grammar. So as I told you before, at these times my students are very tired, so that's why I try to present the grammar in a different way. I present a spin, and it has different questions like, have you ever been to another country? Have you ever eaten chapulines here in Mexico or something? And I encourage students to answer like, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. So in order to notice how we can use this kind of grammar and how we can answer. And then according with to the vocabulary presented and the grammar, so I apply a listening for detail activity. In this case, the students have to listen many conversations, and they have to complete some questions in present perfect, and of course the answers. So this conversation were about different customs and places around the world. Then, in speaking, we perform role plays. So, as students, it's easy for them to perform some role plays using a conversation model as a guide. So that's why I present to them this conversation. They listen and they read, so they try to understand what they were talking about. So, and then they have to practice. But in this case, they have to change some words. For example, in this case, they have to change the place, the country, the famous place, the traditional dish, and so on. So that's why I present to them some slides with information from different countries. So here we have Turkey, London, and Peru, and all of them have an important place there and the most famous or traditional drink or food. So that's why in this case, students perform a role play using the real life context. So maybe they make error correction while they would listen to their partner. Maybe they have peer correction, and in this case, I try them to get fluency over accuracy in order to promote the students' self-confidence. Then in reading activity, I choose an extract that it was an interview from an author, and this author wrote a book about non-verbal language, how our gestures, hand gestures, face gestures can transmit meaning, and how our hand gestures can be different in another countries, or can be rude or inappropriately here in Mexico or in other countries. So that's why how to know this kind of gestures, non-verbal language, can avoid misunderstandings in some countries. So it was very interesting. The students show interest and curiosity in this kind of readings. So I start this reading by presenting the vocabulary for hands, and then students read the test while they were listening to, in order to see and notice the pronunciation. So and then so I work with them this kind of skills. They predicting. So before they start the reading, so I asked them what they think this reading is about. So and they cannot according to the pictures and with the vocabulary, they can predict what kind of what is this test about. And they scan, they read, so just for have some ideas. And then when they were reading, so and if they don't understand a word or something, they can deduce meaning from the context. And they have intensive reading because they read all of these tests in order to try to understand every single word. And that's it. And then after this, they solve reading comprehension activity. So then I present to them some curious daily customs around in some countries around the world. So for example, here we had I put only 3 examples. So here we had Turkey. So how they can use their hand gestures can transmit something. It says to gesture that something is good, hold your hand up with your palms facing up and showing bring with the fingers down, like this, right? This is good in Turkey. It represents good. Here in Mexico, maybe it's here, right? So another is in Ecuador, that if someone gives you a gift, you have to thank to the person and open right on that moment. It's not appropriate if you take the gift and you go away and maybe you open this kind of gift. Well, this gift alone at your house, it can be inappropriate. So these kind of things. So in order to try to think the next activity was about the students have to think on daily customs here in Mexico or hand gestures in order to write and prepare a presentation and to read in a whole class. For example, one of them put the hand gestures, and she said that if you put your hands in your hips and you talk with someone, maybe you are showing that you are angry, or maybe that you are complaining or something, that you are arguing with someone else. So in conversations, it's very important for us to, when you are talking with someone, to pay attention to them, to have eye contact, because it shows that you are paying attention. And if you don't do these kind of things, or maybe you are looking at another place or something, it maybe shows that you are not paying attention and it can be inappropriate. So, and the other students said that for us, it's very important to greet people. When you see someone else, maybe it's good to say buenos días, buenas tardes, buen provecho. That is good for us as Mexicans, right? It shows that you are a respectful person. And because of the time, I apply a formative assessment. So that's why every class I can notice how my students are doing the things, how their progress from their abilities. So that's why I wrote a rubric for each ability. I make a rubric for listening, writing, speaking, and reading. So in order to see how they are working. And then the outcomes. In listening, I promote listening for specific information, listening to enhance the pronunciation, and listening to understand the general idea. So I think my students were able to do all of these things. In reading, students show ability in deducing meaning from the context, inferring, predicting, and reading from detail. In writing, Students were able to write a daily customs of our country using accuracy and cohesion. And of course, in speaking, students were able to express their own ideas. Now here we have the reflections. What my students have learned during these sessions. At the end, we make a reflection about it, and they say that they learn that learning a language is not only to learn grammar, vocabulary, and develop different abilities in this kind of language. So it's very important to know the culture in order to avoid misunderstandings. And they say that it's very important, and they feel curiosity about this kind of topics. So what I have learned during this specialization, well, I learned some theoretical concepts, methodologies, in order to improve my teaching practice. The challenge that I faced during this specialization, it was, the first one is the time, because I don't have enough time to do my homework. So to read all of these lectures that we have to read. So I think the big challenge was the time. So one personal challenge that I faced during this specialization was that I never feel from the beginning to the end, I never feel at the same level of my partners. So it was really difficult for me, this specialization, because sometimes I didn't understand some concepts. So that's why it was a little bit difficult for me. But I want to thank to my teacher, to my partners, because at the end I learned a lot from them. So these are some references, and thank you for your attention.